Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my Week 7 NFL recap and review. I'm going to recap my picks from my final look video that I uploaded on Friday night. Every week I do this recap video where I talk through the picks that I gave out, whether they were good or bad. I discuss the picks I gave out. Also, I do take a look at my lineups. Usually I play one cash game lineup, which is pretty much my main lineup where most of my volume goes. And then I usually play 3 GPP lineups that I'll put in 3 max contests. But I usually try and talk about my cash game lineup because that's where most of my money is every Sunday. So we're going to take a look at my picks, my lineups. Just before we do that, I would appreciate it if you guys would drop a like on this video and let me know down in the comments how your Week 7 went. Was it a hit or miss week for you? Did you hit on a lot of plays or did you miss on a lot of plays? Me personally, I had a few guys that really disappointed for me that I had a lot of exposure to that we will talk more about when we look at my lineups. But definitely let me know down in the comments how your week went. If you are someone that's new to the channel, this is your first time checking out a video on my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would click that subscribe button. Make sure to click the bell as well, so that way you get notified every time I upload and you'll never miss out on a new video. Always appreciate you guys that subscribe and have notifications on. But let's go ahead and take a look at my picks from my Week 7 final look video that I uploaded on Friday night. So I had 5 good picks, 4 bad picks. One of the plays that I had was Allen Lazard, but I did put in the video that I was only going to play Lazard if MVS and Geronimo Allison were out. And we did get the news Sunday morning that they were both going to be active. So that's why I didn't put Lazard in here. I think he finished with like 7 points. And at 3K, honestly, that wasn't that bad of a play. But I only wanted to play Lazard if both of those guys were out, so I didn't put him in the picks. But we'll start off with Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett was one of the quarterback plays I was on. He was a quarterback I liked a lot for value, and he had a really good game. I think he threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I just really liked the matchup at home against the Texans. I thought that game had a lot of shootout potential, and it kind of did shoot out. I think the final score was like 30-23. I like T.Y. Hilton a lot this week. I definitely was going to have T.Y. Hilton and Jacoby Brissett stacks. I didn't go to him in cash games because I just didn't think it was necessary. Didn't really need to drop down that much at quarterback. If I would have went to him in cash, that would have set me up for a much better week. Brissett, though, solid GPP option. I did play him in one of my GPP lineups. 31 fantasy points from a $5,600 quarterback. He was definitely one of the top point per dollar quarterbacks on the slate. But one of the guys that really killed me this week was Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan pretty much had his worst performance I've ever seen him play, or his worst performance of his career. Only had 4.56 fantasy points. I think he threw for like 200 yards. I think he had an interception and a fumble, which made him lose a few points. It was just not a good game from Matt Ryan. It was not a good game from the Falcons. They got blown out by the Rams. The Falcons weren't giving Ryan any time to throw. The offensive line looked really bad. The Rams were getting a ton of pressure on Matt Ryan. It just was not a good game. He was a big disappointment. I played Matt Ryan in my main cash lineup, so that was one of the reasons that I took a loss this week. Ryan really disappointed. He was on a streak of throwing for over 300 yards every game this season. I thought he had one of the safest floors in the league out of any quarterback, especially with how well he had been performing this year. He just had a really bad game, just didn't see that coming. I think that's kind of a play where I got really unlucky. I don't think Ryan was a bad process play or a bad play in general. I think that's just an option, or that was just an option where you got really unlucky. If you play this slate out probably 100 times, I'd say Ryan probably scores 20-plus fantasy points, probably 60, 70 of the 100 times you play the slate out. So definitely, even though Matt Ryan struggled this week, I don't think he was really a bad process play. But then at running back, I gave 3 running backs I was on: Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, and Devontae Freeman. So Dalvin Cook was very solid, 30.9 DraftKings points. We know what Dalvin Cook's going to do every week. He's going to get 20-plus carries. He gets work in the passing game as well. He had over 100 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. It was a big game from Dalvin Cook. I definitely wanted to play him in cash this week just because of that floor he gives you, the upside that he has. Always a good GPP play as well. Same with Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette was a running back that I thought was just underpriced for the workload that he has. 7K in a matchup against the Bengals. I thought he was one of the top plays on the slate. He was one of the first guys I plugged into my cash game lineup. Only had 19.5 DraftKings points even though he didn't score a touchdown. Got 19.5 DK points just on yards and catches alone. I think he had like 120 rushing yards and like 2 catches for 20 yards. So it could have been a much bigger day for Fournette if he found the end zone But still was a solid play with 19.5. Cook was a really good play with 30.9. But then Devontae Freeman was a play that didn't do well. Freeman did get ejected in that Falcons game, I believe, at the beginning of the third quarter. I mean, he wasn't having that good of a game anyways. He had like 4 points at halftime. I thought Freeman was going to be heavily involved in the passing game, which he kind of was. He usually is always their pass down back whenever they're trailing. They've got Freeman out there, and they were trailing for most of this game, and Freeman was on the field for a lot of the snaps. But once he got ejected in the third quarter, that pretty much killed any chances he could have had of salvaging his day. If he could have scored like a late touchdown or something, maybe he could have had a better day. But just looking at that first half, Freeman didn't do much on the ground. I think he only had like maybe 20, 25 rushing yards, had like 2 catches for 10 yards. Wasn't a great game from Devontae Freeman. The ejection didn't help either. Pretty much all Falcons were bad this week, whether it was Ryan, Freeman, Hooper, Ridley, Julio, all of them were pretty bad this week. Falcons just had one of the worst performances I've ever seen. But now moving on to receiver, looking at the receiver plays I gave out. So I gave out 3 receiver plays, T.Y. Hilton, Cooper Kupp, and then Allen Lazard. But like I said, once MVS and Allison were confirmed active, I did get off of Allen Lazard, and I said that I was only going to play Lazard if both of those guys were out. But the other 2 receiver plays I was on was T.Y. Hilton and Cooper Kupp. So T.Y. Hilton, I thought this was a really good spot at home against the Texans. Really liked the matchup. I liked that Hilton was playing at home, where he's always played much better throughout his career. I thought he was way underpriced. 19.4 DraftKings points for 5,900 was a pretty solid play. Hilton was very high owned. He was one of the first guys in my cash lineup. I thought he was just a clear play at receiver this week. I think he finished with like 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. It was something like that, some line similar to that. Decent game from T.Y. Hilton. Honestly thought he had a bit of a higher ceiling in this matchup. I thought we could definitely see like a 100-yard, multiple touchdown game from Hilton, but still not complaining with 19 DraftKings points at his price tag. Cooper Kupp was one of the big disappointments. I thought Cooper Kupp was in a smash spot against the Falcons. Really, a lot of the production from the Rams side came from like all kind of different receivers. I know Gerald Everett caught a touchdown. Todd Gurley caught a touchdown. I think Todd Gurley ran in a touchdown as well. The Rams did put up a lot of points. I think they had a defensive score as well late in the game. They put up like 30 points, but Goff really spread the ball around. I'm pretty sure Goff had a rushing touchdown as well. Kupp wasn't as heavily targeted as I thought he would be. I think he only got like 4 or 5 targets. Just 11 DraftKings points from Cooper Kupp was definitely a disappointing game at 7,400. Honestly, don't think that was a bad play though. Cooper Kupp's going to continue to be one of the highest targeted receivers in the league. I thought some of the other Rams receivers were very strong plays, like Robert Woods at 5,900, Cooks at 5,400. I thought both those guys gave you plenty of upside and were underpriced. But if I had to choose just one Rams receiver to play and I could fit in Cooper Kupp, he was going to be the guy that I went to because I felt like his target floor was just so high. We've seen the ceiling that Cooper Kupp has, and I love the matchup as well against the Falcons, who have one of the worst secondaries in the league. But then the next play, defense and tight end, or tight end and defense. So the tight end play I gave out was Hunter Henry, 15.7 DraftKings points. He was a very solid play at only 4K. I thought he was probably the top value play at tight end along with Darren Waller. I wanted to try and get to Waller in cash games if possible, but I didn't have the salary. There wasn't enough, or I would have had to downgrade at a position that I wasn't comfortable downgrading at. So I went with Hunter Henry in cash. 15.7 was pretty solid for his price tag. He wound up being a solid play. He was one of the more popular tight ends on the slate. In tournaments, you definitely didn't need him to win a tournament. I think the guy you probably wanted tight end for tournaments was definitely Darren Waller, who had like over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. But still getting 15 DK points from a 4K tight end. Pretty solid point per dollar play. And then lastly, the Bears defense at home against the Saints I thought was a solid option. They did get a defensive touchdown. Cordell Patterson did get a kick return for a touchdown, which helped, but they still allowed like 30 points to the Saints. Saints just kind of ran all over the Bears defense, which honestly I didn't expect to happen. Only 6 DK points from a 3K defense. Not the best play overall, so it was just kind of a week where I had some good plays and then I had some really bad plays. Like Ryan and Freeman were really bad and kind of killed my week, especially in cash games. You'll see in the next slide, I played both Ryan and Freeman in cash, which kind of just killed my chances of cashing this week, of having a profitable week. But I still did hit on some good plays. I did have some of those guys like Brissett in tournaments. I played Cook and Fournette in cash. I played Hilton in cash. Henry was in my main lineup as well. So let's just go ahead and take a look at my lineups real quick before we end the video. So my cash lineup, It starts off on the far left. This is my main lineup. This is a lineup where I have most of my volume on every Sunday. Usually if my cash game lineup does well, then that means I'm probably going to win money for the day. But this was a week where my cash lineup didn't do that great. 124.16 was the final score of it. I'm pretty sure to cash in double ups this week, you needed like 130, 131. So I was just short of cashing in double ups. I was about 6 points out. Really sucks that I was 6 points out of double ups when I got 4 points from Ryan, 7 points from Ridley, 4 points from Freeman. I mean, these guys literally had like the worst possible games that they could ever have. Matt Ryan was someone I thought was a clear cash play this week. Just the floor that he gives you, or the at least that he's shown this year, throwing for over 300 yards in every game. Obviously, didn't expect him to go for 4 DraftKings points. That's just a play he got really unlucky on. At running back, Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournette were the two guys that I wanted. Trying to secure those touches at running back, I think, is always key in cash games. Cook, I thought, was just going to see so much volume, whether it was a run-heavy game script or a pass-heavy game script. Cook's going to be involved, and he obviously was, even with the run-heavy game script. They got him in the end zone twice in that game. Same with Leonard Fournette. He's another guy that's going to be involved. I played him in all 4 of my main lineups. He's just going to see so much work. He's going to see a ton of carries. He gets work in the passing game as well. Another guy that I thought was a clear play for cash games. But then at receiver, that's where it kind of got interesting this week. So T.Y. Hilton was one guy that I had locked in for cash games this week, and I knew I was going to play him. But originally I did have, instead of Robert Woods and Calvin Ridley, instead of Woods, Ridley, and Freeman, I had Lazard, Kupp, and Chris Carson. Also had in that lineup I had Jared Goff over Matt Ryan because I couldn't get to Ryan in that lineup. That would have been a lineup that would have done much better than this one, because obviously having just Goff over Ryan was a big improvement. I mean, Goff scored like almost 30 more points than Matt Ryan. So originally getting off my Lazard lineup, once we got the news that MVS and Allison were going to be active, I just didn't feel very comfortable playing Alan Lazard. I just wasn't sure if the workload was going to be there, if he was going to see enough snaps, enough volume. There was a tweet that came out around 12:30 that Lazard was working with the first team and that he was going to be involved, but I didn't feel very safe with Lazard. And in cash games, you're always trying to kind of go the safe route, play the guys that project the best. So I got off of Lazard. I had to drop down from Cooper Kupp, drop down from Kupp to Woods, upgraded from Lazard to Calvin Ridley, and then I had to drop down from Chris Carson to Devontae Freeman, which obviously in the end kind of cost me, but still I just don't think Lazard was a cash play this week. Even though he's had a decent game for his price tag, I just didn't feel safe playing him in cash once we got the news that both of those Green Bay receivers were going to be active. So I landed on Woods and Ridley. I thought Woods was just a really solid option at 5,900. In one of the highest projected games of the week, Robert Woods continues to be a heavily targeted receiver, and he had a decent game, 13.6 DK points. He did get tackled at the 1 yard line. Could have had a touchdown. I was pretty tilted that he got tackled at the 1. I was watching that game live. But Woods was okay for 13.6. Calvin Ridley was a big disappointment. I thought he was going to see a lot of targets with Jalen Ramsey shadowing Julio. Ramsey's been one of the best corners in the league. I didn't think Julio was going to get completely shut down, but I didn't expect him to have a big game either. I thought that could have funneled more targets to like Ridley and Hooper and Sanu. So I liked Ridley a lot at his price tag. I thought he was pretty safe to project him for 6 to 8 targets, which I believe he did get. Just didn't have a productive day yardage-wise, didn't get into the end zone. Only 7 DraftKings points from Calvin Ridley. But then Hunter Henry, I thought was one of the clear tight end plays in cash games this week. I thought in cash at tight end you were either playing Austin Hooper, Darren Waller, or Hunter Henry. Obviously Evan Ingram was in play, but I just don't think you needed to pay up at tight end. I thought it was between those 3 guys. And ultimately I landed on Henry just because at 4K he kind of opened up the rest of my lineup, what I was able to do with the rest of my lineup. But then I had Devontae Freeman in the flex, who I thought was a strong option, just given his role, how much work he sees in the passing game. Obviously, him getting ejected didn't help, and he wasn't very effective on the ground either in this game. Just kind of got a floor game from Devontae Freeman. And then I went to the Colts defense in cash, who I did mention in my final look video. I thought was a pretty strong option at 2K if you wanted to pivot away from the Bears. Colts at home against a team in the Houston Texans who do allow a lot of sacks. Deshaun Watson will take some sacks, and I believe he did get sacked like 3 or 4 times in this game. I think he also threw maybe 2 interceptions. I know he threw at least 1 interception, but the Colts at 2K for 9 DraftKings points in cash were solid. But now looking at my 3 GPP lineups real quick before we end the video. My first GPP lineup, I had Josh Allen paired with John Brown. Then I had Fournette, Josh Jacobs, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, Austin Hooper, Chris Carson, and the Colts defense. I think the only mistake I made in this lineup was playing Carson and Metcalf together. Probably not very positive correlation there. I think I could have definitely got off of one of the two. Probably should have got off of Chris Carson and pivoted to Todd Gurley, especially with all the exposure that I had to that Atlanta and Los Angeles game. But either way, I think that's like the only mistake I really made in that lineup. And then my next lineup, my second GPP lineup, I had Goff stacked with Kupp and Woods. And then I ran it back with Devontae Freeman and Calvin Ridley. And then I had Fournette, Hunter Henry, Derrick Henry on the other side of that Chargers game, and then the Bears defense. And then in my last GPP lineup, I had a Jacoby Brissett, T.Y. Hilton stack, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Brandon Cooks, DK Metcalf, Mark Andrews, Devontae Freeman, and the Colts defense. All the plays that I was on this week I thought were all strong plays. I don't think any of them were like bad plays or bad process plays. I think I just kind of got unlucky. Like with Metcalf, I mean, Metcalf's always a guy that gives you a high ceiling. The Seahawks offensively didn't really do much in that game, and really nobody on the Seahawks performed well. I think Tyler Lockett might have had a decent game, but even though Metcalf had a bad game, I don't think he was a really bad process play. Just kind of got unlucky. Same with like Mark Andrews. I mean, we know Mark Andrews is just going to see a ton of volume. Only getting 5.9 Draftkings points from him is very unlikely on a week-to-week basis, especially since Marquise Brown was inactive for that game. But even someone like Brandon Cooks, even though he only had 9.9 DraftKings points, I thought there was so much upside for Brandon Cooks in this game against a bad Falcons secondary in the indoors where Brandon Cooks has just always played well throughout his career. That was another guy that, even though it didn't work out, I think that was just a play that kind of got unlucky. The upside for Cooks in this matchup was for sure there, and I think that's what it's really all about, is just trying to find guys with the upside. But these are my lineups for this week. Obviously, it was not the best week for me. Just looking at my review real quickly, I did take a loss this week. I did get about 50% of my money back, which is obviously better than nothing, but still took a loss. Even though I got 50% back, still was not profitable on the week. Like I said earlier, I don't think I made any bad process plays. Felt like all the guys I played in cash games were pretty strong. Got unlucky with Matt Ryan having the worst game of his career. Devontae Freeman getting ejected didn't help either. Both those guys having pretty much the worst games of their career really sucked, and obviously is going to keep me from cashing. If I would have just got like even 5-6 points from those guys, I would have definitely been able to cash in double ups this week. It sucks that I was just a few points out of double ups while getting floor games from 3 players. Ridley going for 7, Ryan going for 4, Freeman going for 4. I mean, if those guys even score 2 points each, or 2 points each more, then that's probably going to get me into double ups this week. But getting off my Lazard lineup came back to bite me in the end. But I thought, in the end, I just thought Allen Lazard was a really thin option. With both MVS and Geronimo Allison active, I just wasn't sure if he was going to see enough targets to where I felt safe playing him in cash games. It would have went in my favor if I would have stuck with that lineup, because I did have Jared Goff over Matt Ryan in that main lineup that I was going to play, and Goff outscored Ryan by like 25 points. But there are a lot of sharp players that I like to follow and look at their lineups, and they all got off of Lazard, so I feel like I made the right move in the end, even though that lineup did perform better. But we're on to week 8, guys. Week 7, not the best week. Definitely a week I kind of just want to get behind me and move on to week 8. Got NBA coming up this week, so hopefully we'll be able to get back some of those losses. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. You'll notice on the screen right now I have one of my more recent videos up, my Monday Night Football video for the Showdown Slate. If you want to check that video out, you can click that video. You can also subscribe to the channel by hovering over my logo. Feel free to leave any questions, any comments, any feedback down below in the comment section. I do always appreciate that. And good luck in the upcoming Week 8 slate. Hopefully Week 8 treats you better. Peace.